Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, it's not often that we get to break good news or talk about good things, but this is going to be one of those rare instances. I'm recording this video on December 6th. You'll probably catch it on December 7th. But as you probably heard already, the assault weapon ban of 2023 has died a rather rapid death in the United States Senate today, and along with it went two other pieces of potential civilian disarmament legislation. Now, I know a lot of people are applauding that and thinking, okay, we're out of the woods yet. No, we're not out of the woods, but I think it does help us start doing the math on what the likelihood is that we might see similar legislation make it through both chambers of Congress and to the president's desk. And I don't think it's really that good, but more importantly, let's celebrate what actually happened today, and let's talk about the sudden death of the assault weapon ban of 2023. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. We're actually talking about three pieces of legislation. We're talking about Senate Bill 25, better known as the assault weapon ban of 2023. We also have Senate Bill 494, a really important one because this dealt with universal background checks. And as you know, we've been really concerned because there was already the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that's already kind of started messing in that area and has already given ATF, I think, a little bit more leg room to work with here to implement some rules. You guys can geek out on the videos down there. We'll link them up. And then, of course, there was also Senate Bill 173, which would have been a federal safe storage provision. So these were three pretty sizable pieces of legislation. Now, here's what happened. None of them made it out of the United States Senate today, but none of them were actually taken to a formal vote. Instead, even though Chuck Schumer was all braggadocious and puffing his chest out earlier this week about how he was going to bring these things to the floor. And of course, there was the whole, well, he doesn't have the votes to do it, but at least he's going to force every one of the senators to go on record and either give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Guess what? None of that happened. They just died, and they died relatively quick. And when you see what the Senator Schumer did here, they were kind of DOA. They were dead on arrival. Here's what I mean. They were introduced on the floor on what's called a motion for unanimous consent, okay? And what that basically is rather than it being introduced onto the floor through the normal methods and then an actual vote be taken after you discuss it and then have votes on amendments and all of this other stuff, but that's the way that most legislation is introduced to the floor of either chamber. Here, what instead Schumer or the senators who proposed this bill is they sent it to the floor for unanimous consent, which means if any one senator objects to it, that's the end of it. So you can see that this was in many ways almost like a kamikaze mission, okay? It's almost like Senator Schumer just threw these things onto the sacrificial pile here, and maybe that is the case. And when you start doing the math, you'll understand why. You see, because they would have needed more than 50 votes to actually pass this legislation, but they would have needed more than 60 votes in favor of it to override a filibuster. There's no way that's going to happen. And when we take a look at the usual suspects, and who are the usual suspects? Because as we know, there's a bunch of them firmly rooted in, hey, we're going to oppose any type of gun legislation. Then there's a bunch firmly rooted in, hey, we'll do anything to disarm our population. There's always those middle swing votes. And of course, they include Senator Kristen Sinema, Senator Joe Manchin, Senator Susan Collins, Senator Mitt Romney, and Senator Lisa Murkowski. So you're talking about one independent and then some R's that some people don't believe are really R's. I don't get into all of the labeling and all of that stuff. Now, all of them did not even have to go on the record, you see, because once some other senator jumped up and down and said, no, I'm objecting to it, that was the end of it. So down goes Senate Bill 25, down goes Senate Bill 494 on the same grounds, and down goes Senate Bill 173. Now, this isn't the end of this type of effort. It's probably the end of these particular bills. But let us remember that we already have some other senators that have announced that they will be introducing a new assault weapon ban, the Go Safe Act, the Gas-Operated Semi-Automatic Firearm Exclusion Act. It's a really catchy name, and it's a different way of labeling the same stuff. So instead of actually banning them based on their cosmetic features on the outside, we're just going to ban them based upon the mechanical operation of them on the inside. That's literally what that legislation does. And so you begin to see that right now, I know there's a lot of people screaming on a federal level for an assault weapon ban. And so for those of you who still live in states that resemble the United States of America, congratulations. But the political will and the political numbers necessary to pass this rather significant, and it would be a significant piece of legislation, is just not there. And even if a piece of legislation were to happen to make it out of the Senate and out of the House, and to the president's desk, do any of you think it would survive this current Supreme Court? Now, here's the other interesting thing is that on all three of these bills, the Democrats didn't even get unanimous consent of all the Democrats, which means there was actually holdouts or negative votes coming from the Democratic caucus for these bills. So again, this is political chum that they get to throw into the water to their base. I think the other side does it also on some other issues that are rather unobtainable, but they talk about it anyways. We do need to keep our eyes on the Go Safe Act, because there's enough people foolish enough to might think like, oh, well, this is a different way of looking at it. This isn't as bad. It does the exact same thing. It just has a different method of describing how it's doing it. That's it. Once again, the three bills, let us all have a moment of silence for Senate Bill 25, Senate Bill 494, and Senate Bill 173. Listen, we'll link everything up down below so you can geek out on it for yourself. We'll also do some linking up down there on the Go Safe Act so you can figure out just what a terrible pile of crap that is as well. In the meantime, if you get any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information, it's down there in the description box also. Now, in the meantime, let's all of you remember that part of being a lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching, and stay safe.